This podcast is brought to you by RevUp Academy. If you clicked on this podcast episode and you start thinking to yourself, my team is still stuck in task mode, you are not alone. So many customer success professionals are running meetings, answering emails, and sending follow-ups. But when it comes down to owning revenue and driving expansion and confidently speaking about ROI, they end up freezing. They were never actually trained to think commercially. Now imagine something different, a world where your customer success managers walk into executive conversations knowing exactly how to connect outcomes to revenue. Imagine them leading value conversations instead of feature walkthroughs, and imagining them hitting 110, 115, and 120% NRR because your team understands how to create growth and not just manage accounts. And that is exactly why I built RevUp Academy. RevUp Academy is my 6-week revenue-focused coaching program for ambitious customer success professionals who want to move from reactive to strategic and from support mindset to a revenue driver. We cover value realization, commercial discovery, executive language, expansion strategy, and how to build revenue success plans that actually work. And the doors to RevUp Academy are actually opening soon. And if you want early access and the behind the scenes detail and get priority enrollment, then make sure you join our VIP waitlist. Go ahead and head over to thecustomersuccesspro.com/RevUp to learn more and to get on our list. That's thecustomersuccesspro.com/RevUp. Now, let's get in today's episode with Jim. Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Anika Zubair, and welcome to the Customer Success Pro podcast, your go-to space for real talk, expert advice, and actionable insights in the world of customer success. I'm a CS executive leader, award-winning strategist, CS coach, and customer success fanatic. I help CSMs and CS leaders build the skills and the confidence to become revenue-driving pros and scale world-class CS teams. So whether you're brand new to CS or a seasoned leader, this podcast is here to support your growth. Because customer success isn't a destination, it's a journey. And I'm here to be your guide and navigate every step of your journey. So join me every Wednesday where you'll get fresh CS tips, tricks, and strategies you can actually use. Some weeks I'll share my own insights and best practices from working in CS over the last 13 years. And once a month, I'll bring on expert guests to dive into the most relevant and pressing topics in customer success today. So if you're ready to level up, hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you tune in, and let's make your CS journey a little bit easier together. Welcome back. Today, I'm speaking with Jim Richmond, Chief Customer Officer at Smartling. Jim leads customer success, professional services, and account management for global enterprise clients, including MasterCard and Walgreens. With more than 20 years of experience in SaaS, he has held just about every customer-facing role you can imagine, giving him a unique perspective on what it truly takes to build and scale a high-performing post-sales organization. And at Smartling, Jim is at the forefront of helping enterprise organizations measure ROI from their AI investments and rethink how they move from traditional software implementation to AI-driven solutions. He brings both technical depth and commercial clarity to the conversation, backed by his background in computer information systems and business process management. In this episode, we are diving into what it really takes to design a value-led customer organization and how to structure teams around outcomes and not tasks, and how leaders can adapt their CS strategy in a rapidly evolving AI landscape. So let's talk to Jim and let's get into it. Jim, welcome to the podcast. I'm excited to have you here. Before we get into today's topic, please can you tell my listeners a little bit more about yourself and how you started at Smartling and a little bit more about your role?
Yeah, thanks, Anika. It's great to be invited and wonderful to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and your listeners. I've been in the market, what I'll call MarTech, like the marketing technology space, for like 20 years, maybe more. And in fact, I started doing customer success. I like to say before it was cool. Like I was a technical account manager in the early 2000s. And I think just at my core, what I've always really enjoyed doing is solving people's problems with technology, and
Love
so
that.
that's led me to a bunch of different places within the SaaS ecosystem, but almost always in customer facing roles, and it's what I think I'm good at, and what I really love to do.
I think you're good at it. You've made a career out of it. So we're going to say you're probably an expert at it. You're not giving yourself enough credit. But let's hear a little bit more about your team and Smartling and kind of what your customer org is designed around. Because chief customer officer can mean a lot of things today in SaaS, and it can be a lot of different teams. Every organization is different. So tell us a little bit more about Smartling, about the team that you're currently running there. What are you guys held accountable to?
Smartling is an AI company that makes high quality, low cost, rapid turnaround translations available to anybody. And so it's a very powerful set of tools that allows companies and NGOs and all kinds of governments, all kinds of organizations to go to market in a variety of different languages and face cultures and potential customers in a way that makes them most comfortable transacting and interacting. The team that I oversee has four main functions. So there's customer success, what you would traditionally think of, which is focused around customer retention and making that journey very smooth. We have a support organization that handles customer inquiries and trouble tickets and all that. We have a managed services function that provides full-time or fractional full-time sort of outsourcing assistance. So people that want us to run their localization program for them, we can do that. And we also have a professional services organization that does implementations, that does more technical architecture work and builds things that are bespoke for our particular customers. So that's the whole umbrella of the customer organization. The metrics that we hold ourselves accountable to are primarily what you would expect. So gross revenue retention. So how much of our existing customer base do we keep over a period of time? And then also net revenue retention. So how much are we growing within our existing customers that we already have? I want to be a great neighbor to my partners in the sales organization.
I love that.
I also care deeply about employee NPS. That's the third metric that matters a lot to me. Is are people do they feel like they belong, and are they growing and have what they feel like is a path to success within the company? Are we making the world around us better as we go?
I love that. I think a lot of times we forget that last piece. So thanks for adding it in. I'm sure it's awesome working within your organization, but also very cool that the whole organization is held accountable to North Star metrics. Because I think sometimes it's really hard when you're designing such a complex organization and also so many different lines that lead up to you, right? Everything from professional services to traditional customer success. Everyone can be held accountable to different things, which we'll get into in a bit. But it is just really great to hear that there is just North Star metrics that your team is held accountable to, but that you also consider their growth such a big part of success as well. So that's really cool to hear.
Yeah.
You said earlier that you're, I guess, technical at heart, and that's where you started in all of this, and you just really want to help customers figure things out. And I love asking my guests and everyone I have on this show, like, what inspired you to start working in customer success? We all come from such different parts of the world, different ways of working, different career paths that led us into customer success. I'm so curious, like from a technical side, why customer success? Why chief customer officer? What led you to where you are today?
You're right. I think of myself as a technical person. Like I got a technical degree when I finished college, and I went off and worked in Big Five consulting. I started my career at Accenture and was writing Java and building enterprise systems from scratch and doing the big systems integration work that firms like that are great at and were doing 20 years ago. I wanted to continue that work and have more variety in my life, but also be in a high growth environment. And so that kind of led me down the early to mid stage startup path, which is where I spent a lot of my time. And again, the most interesting problems are right there at the interface with the customer, right? I'm less of a product engineering person where you've got a relatively long time frame and a big backlog of things that you're working towards. It's much more about for me having those rich conversations with people who even sometimes don't really understand their own problem very well and need someone to show up and ask them good questions and be intellectually curious about their situation and what it is that they're trying to do, and then do what we can to bend and merge the technology and the tools that we have to hammer in those nails. So that's what's held my interest over all this time. I've taken forays off into sales and solutions consulting and some other approaches, but it always comes back to customer success and ultimately, when I landed in this role almost 8 months ago now, it's just been a really fun opportunity to kind of unify a bunch of different pieces of experience that I've had in my career into one role where I can really bring all those stories and all those experiences to bear to help everybody be great.
I love that. At the core, it's like solving a problem. Like you said, whether it's technical or even like you just said, doing the right discovery and asking the right questions to really help almost your customer understand what they actually want. Because like you said, sometimes they don't even know. And sometimes our job is to really help them figure it out and get them from point A to point B. So I really love that. And I think that's awesome that you're kind of melding all of your experience into this one unified team that you are building out, which is really cool. And I think Chief Customer Officer is a great title. It's probably a title most people listening on this podcast are curious, like, hey, I really would love to have that title at one point in my career. I'm curious, do you have any tips on how you've ended up where you've ended up? But also, I always like to ask my guests again, like you've kind of, I guess, made it into Chief Customer Officer. What's next for you, or what's your career ambition now that you find yourself in that Chief Customer Officer position?
I think at its core, right, the goal of the role is to care deeply about the experiences our customers are having and how do we improve them and how do we bend the rest of the organization to go and be flexible where we need to and to be responsive but at its core, right, the real kernel at the center of that is just caring deeply about what the customers are experiencing, having that empathy for what are they going through and how do I make it better.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I want the Chief Customer Officer role to be at the end of the day, is somebody who looks across the entire journey and is dug in at each phase to make it great. That comes with great financial outcomes for the company and for our investors, but it's accretive, right? It's a flywheel, and it also builds for great outcomes for our own folks and our customers, which is what I'm after. There's a second part of your question. Tell me what it was.
Yes, there was. The second part was more around like what's next
Yeah.
now that you have that Chief Customer Officer title, which is like elusive for some of us. Like what is next now that you've sat in this position?
That's a tough question, Anika. I'm not sure that there is a next. Like maybe this is a Pope job for me, right? Where I'm just going to be in it until the end. I really like what I'm doing. I love the team and the ethos and the culture that we've been able to build at Smartling. We're growing really rapidly. We solve a relevant problem in the marketplace, and so I love the work that I'm doing. I love getting to work with customers and getting to the value outcomes that we've got. So I need to think about that one a little bit more. That's
okay. I think that was a great answer. I think there's nothing wrong in leaning in and say, I love what I do and I want to keep doing it for as long as I can.
Yeah, we're growing. So I'm having a great time. Like let's keep it up.
Amazing. And I know that you're building this team and you're growing it out and you're, again, merging all these different factors into one, which is a lot of why we're talking today, is really around designing a value-led customer organization, which that has to be, I think, the hottest word right now happening in customer success, is building something that's truly value-led, and value articulation, I think, is at top of everyone's mind when it comes to CS. And I think that this market has really made a shift and a change in how we actually deliver that to our customers, but how we focus on it internally as well. And I think in the world of AI and LLMs and everything that you probably know way better than I do, like value articulation is truly, truly top of mind right now. And I'm curious from your take, from the work that you do every single day within the AI space, like what's changed in the market that's made this such a critical focus, especially in the world of LLMs and AI?
I think that one of the first things I did when when I got here and had a look around was we decided to blow up the QBR deck. Quarterly business review, right? We're expected to maintain a cadence with our customers and talk with them on a regular basis and hit on what have we done, how have we justified the premium that we charge, and are you going to renew with us, and all that good stuff. Like that's just sort of the meat and potatoes of customer success, right? And what I found was that it was very much about us and the features that we do and the metrics that we care about. How much did you translate? How much of that translation was leveraged this feature or that feature? Even some financial metrics, like what was your ultimate cost per word, for example. When you really look at it through the customer lens instead of our own lens, you realize that those things aren't necessarily all that important to them. That really what they want at the end of the day is to be able to be compliant with language regulations in Canada, or to enter a new market in Latin America. And, they've already got all this distribution infrastructure. We might as well be selling south of the border as well. And so ultimately what mattered to our customers was not how many words are you translating or what portion of them are touched by a human or something like that, which impacts cost. It's about, are we able to go and enter this new market? Are we compliant with regulation? What is our risk exposure for a given kind of content? And so I wanted to shift the conversation away from how are you using the software to what are you able to do? Because the software and Smartling in general are here holding your coat or taking care of that, taking that off of your plate. And so that kind of leads to this idea of I don't want our customer-facing folks to think of themselves or Smartling as the center of the story. I want them to position themselves as a guide, as a person who's helping our customer, who is the hero of the story, along their journey to enter a new market or to reduce risk or reduce cost or whatever else their particular goal might be. And you cannot be a good guide unless you understand where the hero of the story wants to go, like what the quest is that they're on and what do they want to accomplish.
Quick pause from our podcast episode. Now, you've just heard Jim talk about designing a value-led organization. Now, let me ask you something. Now that annual kickoffs are done, and even though the energy was super high wherever you were in the world kicking off, and the slides were super inspirational, and you were very aligned with your team, and they understood the goals that stood in front of them, and they understood that the goals were super ambitious, they now are back at their desks working with their customers day in and day out. And and I know that as exciting as kickoffs are, today is where the real work starts. If you're heading into a new year with big NRR goals and you want your customer success team to feel confident in owning revenue conversations, this cannot just live on one strategy slide deck during your annual kickoffs. Your team needs skills, and they need to know how to run value-driven discovery, how to quantify ROI, and how to handle renewal objections. And they also need to understand how to multi-thread and uncover expansion opportunities without feeling pushy or salesy. And that is exactly what my team has done in building workshops for. We have built workshops for your team to really level up their skills. I run tactical hands-on sessions for customer success teams globally focused on value realization, stakeholder mapping, objection handling, and revenue-focused engagement. If your leadership team has set bold targets for this year, let's make sure your customer success managers are equipped with the skills to execute and deliver on them. The real work really starts after your annual kickoff. If you want to book in a workshop, go ahead and head over to thecustomersuccesspro.com/team-event. That's thecustomersuccesspro.com/team-event. And let's talk about how to level up your team in 2026. Yeah. And I'm curious, like you just mentioned, like with AI and the rise of AI, that there's so much more that they're looking at. Like you said, they're looking at way more now than probably before. And I'm curious if value articulation, at least for your team who works in language and AI so much, has it become easier, you think, with this rise? Or do you think it's becoming even more difficult? I love that you blew up the QBR, by the way. Love that piece. But I also think that there's still, even with blowing up a QBR, there's this almost language gap. And I keep seeing this gap maybe widen with AI, or maybe a heavy reliance on AI to make this language value articulation for customer success professionals. I'm wondering how you guys are seeing it living and breathing within an AI tool that's all around language as well.
I think that there's a lot of complexity within the AI ecosystem, right? That
Yep.
and our customers are at lots of different levels of sophistication along that spectrum, which is great. Like that's to be expected. And so there's a lot of sensitivity that we need to have to, for this particular customer, like where are they, how much are they being disrupted, and what are their goals, and how do we adjust our language and adjust the style of the interaction that we have in order to suit that, right? So we have folks that that are basically like, listen, I don't care about any of the details. I want to go to market in these 10 geographies, and I want it to be done at a modicum of cost. Go figure it out for me, Smartling. Great. Got it. We'll go do that and execute to that specification. We also have people who are very sophisticated, who are building some of their own technology, and they just want our help in validating that it's working well. They're in the middle of a transition, and we're here to fill a gap, and that's okay too. And so I think there's a lot of variability in terms of what folks are expecting right now. And so
Yeah.
again, positioning yourself, whether it's okay, I get it, like you don't need help reading the map. You know exactly where you're going, and I'm just going to carry the baggage. Like, that's totally fine. And there are other folks who are like, I just want the pain to go away. I don't even know where it's coming from. Can you
Yeah.
let's go
Can
through
you
all the
help?
steps and figure it out together.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
there's this, I was going to say duality, but that's not the right word, spectrum of different kinds of empathy, listening, service, and engagement that we need to provide in order to provide a world-class experience for our folks. And that's the thing, is that AI is evolving so rapidly that it's not necessary. You can't make assumptions about, oh, well, just because this is a big company, that means that they're going to be sophisticated and ready to go. Like that's a you're going to get into trouble doing that, right? There's a lot of the little folks are really leaning in and taking big risks, and a lot of the big players are slowing down, and vice versa. Like it's all over the place. And so back to that concept of like authentic curiosity, you have to kind of assume nothing and invest the time in
Yeah.
really good discovery.
I completely agree. I think even with all our bots and everything that's out there that's basically going to replace me, and there's going to be a bot running this podcast soon. But I think even then, like you
I
said,
doubt it.
radical curiosity. There's radical curiosity in asking the right question, making sure you really understand what it is. What does value even mean? Like,
Mhm.
as you said, it could be a spectrum of things at different organizations, and you can't just make an assumption at this point. There's a lot of different teams doing a lot of different things out there.
You
And
got
I
to
think that
ask them.
that's where
I was recently, sorry, I was recently at at an auto manufacturer, and having a conversation with them. And usually when you think about manufacturing, they're very, very focused on process control, on their supply chain in order to drive margins and all that. And I was basically saying, assuming nothing, like walk me through like speed, quality, cost, the classic triangle. Which of the levers are most important to you? And their response shocked me. They said, oh, it's speed, far and away, above everything else, right? The marketplace is evolving so quickly. When we release a new model, we have to be able to turn that around in 14 different markets overnight, and it has to be good, but I got to be able to do it right away. I never would have expected that from a manufacturer with billions of dollars invested in non-recoverable expensive facilities and that kind of stuff. So it's all over the place. So you just have to ask.
it is. You got to ask. And I think that comes back to, again, being curious, being open-minded, but be also coming in with the idea that you need to speak to your customer to really figure out what it is they want from you, which I think will never go away, even in the ever evolving, ever speedy world of AI that we do live in. But I do think that we still are stuck in a service delivery mindset. I think that that's something that a lot of customer success teams are still stuck in that way. I think AI is going to accelerate us out of that. But I do think that's unfortunately, we get into this mindset of like, even though without a QBR, we're still thinking we've got to deliver on these KPIs, these goals, these metrics that our customer has laid out. But as you just said, there's so much more to value. And somebody might say speed, someone might say money, someone might say something else that they actually value, right? So how do you shift your team into becoming truly a value-driven team rather than someone that's just like, again, in that delivery mindset where they're checking boxes or just doing the to-do list? Because I think that that's where a lot of teams find themselves in this year.
Well, to be clear, we're still doing QBRs, right? We just completely changed the format and the conversation. So in the current round that we're just wrapping up now was very much focused on a kickoff vibe, if you will. So it was much more about, let's go back to first principles. What are the metrics that matter to you? Like,
okay,
here's what I'm guessing that they are. I know that it's wrong, but it's a good guess. It's a starting point. Let's refine it together. And so that was the first round of BRs that we're just wrapping up executing for the opening part of the year. And then the next one will be delivering proactive suggestions around how to leverage the toolkit that we have available to go out and hit those goals. The next one after that is going to be about a mid-year check-in. How are we doing? And then the final one in Q4 is going to be focused on planning for FY27. Crazy as that sounds, it's right around the corner.
It's right around the corner. And that's interesting that you have different themes to your business reviews. It's not just about like, again, value delivery or service delivery, I should say. It's more around like, where are they within milestones of your product and how they're using it. And I guess, how does the team react to that? Like you have the new structure of how business reviews are supposed to be delivered, but how are they going into practice to make sure that value is actually being delivered and received by a customer? Is it through radical discovery, like you said? Is it through this new business review structure? How do you enable your team, I guess, to go into these conversations to drive value?
Yeah, the quarterly themed BR cadence was an experiment that we did that we actually like the outcome of. I think there's a fair amount of business review fatigue in the SaaS marketplace ecosystem at large, and your customers, like when you see flagging engagement on that, which I think a lot of folks are like, oh boy, here comes yet another CSM. Like the typical marketing organization has 50 or 60 vendors. Like that's an unbelievable number of QBRs that potentially a customer would have to attend.
Who has time for that many business reviews? Could you imagine? That's a business review every week of your quarter, at least.
So how do you maintain mind share and really just deliver the things that are valuable to the customer? And so one of the ways that we've cooked up is to have this kind of quarterly freshness, so where it's not just the same metrics and how are we tracking to it week over week over week. It's much more about, okay, this time we're anchoring on what are your actual metrics that you care about. The next time we're gonna bring you something that's valuable and proactive and drive the conversation that way. In terms of how do we talk about value and bake that in and enable the CSMs to go do that, I think the main thing is the QBR cadence that we just did, right, which is about capturing and cataloging the metrics that our customer says is important to them. It's not about us. It's not our metrics. It's not words under management or anything else. It's strictly, you care about rapid turnaround, like the automaker. You care about reducing cost, that you're still using a lot of human translation. You want to mechanize that, whatever it might be, cataloging those things and then tracking back to it. And so becoming that that repository of what are the metrics that matter for each customer, and then tracking to those quarter over quarter over quarter is ultimately what we want to get to. And so that's the template, like that's what's built into the BR. And so that's what we expect out of our CSMs as we go.
I love that. I love that you call out their metrics. It's about your customer.
It has to be their metrics. It's not
the
ours.
old QBRs, let's call them pre-2020 QBRs that we're all tired of and nobody wants to have them anymore. They were all about our product. They were set up where it's like, hey, you launched with our product in this way. This is all the work you've done in our product so far. And then now here's a roadmap of what our product is going to do next for you. But it was all about us or our product. It was never about them or their business outcomes or their KPIs, like you just said. And whether it's about speed and agility or about time saved or about money made or whatever it is, it's about their metrics, right? And I think that entire business review structure just makes you rethink how you work with the customer because it's no longer about your product first, it's about their business first, which I think a lot of customer success organizations are kind of going through this, like, I don't want to call it identity crisis, but almost like like a rejig of everything where it's like, hey, the way we're doing business reviews is just not serving our customers anymore. It's serving us. So how do we rethink what we're able to do for our customer first? And I also love that you've redesigned your organization around that as well. And I think that in speaking to value-led customer organizations, you've created specialized roles within your customer success team, which is really cool to hear. And I think it's going to keep happening because if you think about your sales counterpart, we have everything from an SDR, a BDR, an AE, an AM. What else? I don't even know. There's so many specialized roles in sales these days, right? And
Right.
same with marketing as well. There's growth marketing, there's like top of funnel everything like conversion marketing, you name it. There's all these specialty roles in other go-to market teams, but I think CS is sometimes on the back foot when it comes to specialization. So I'm so curious. You've started to make specialization. What was the problem that you were trying to solve for with the generalist CSM role? And what were you trying to break your organization into now as you decide to redesign it?
I think having a generalist one woman band kind of CSM role, it makes a lot of sense if you're a small company at a growth stage with a lot of resource constraint and you're kind of figuring things out as you go.
Yeah.
However, I believe that becomes a constraint. Like you can't really get there to the next level. Continuing to try to do that, it is very difficult to onboard and ramp up somebody, even a highly engaged, intelligent person, to be great at to know everything about a complicated topic like AI and localization, to know everything about the platform that we have, to know everything about the customer base, to be able to onboard people, let alone all the value stuff we just talked about and being a relationship builder and all that. It's too big an ask, in my opinion. And so in order to get more operational leverage, what we decided to do was to specialize some of these roles so that they can be a lot more efficient. And so one of the first things we did was we took onboarding off of the plates of CSMs and created a specialized onboarding team that they have their own tools, they've built a methodology, and they're engaged in earlier in the sales process to sort of set expectations and scope things properly, and that's going to allow us to mechanize and really scale that portion really well. When you think about your typical CSM who might have 3 dozen accounts or something like that, they don't do that many onboardings in a year, right? They might do a 1 or 2 a quarter. It's not enough repetitions to become great at it, and it takes a long time to even approach the point of being good, and you're never really going to get to great because you don't get enough reps. And similarly, you don't necessarily get the tooling and all that kind of stuff. Having a team that's focused on it and specialized just for that makes a lot of sense. We did the same thing with our smallest tier of accounts. It's a more transactional relationship interaction with the company, and I wanted those folks to have their own cadence, to have their own one-to-many outreach structure, and that, so that there aren't distractions from our very expensive top-tier CSMs as they focus on our largest and most strategic accounts. And we're going to continue to do that, right? We do a lot of work with reporting. Everybody has different reporting requirements, and so we want to make sure that we have people who are really great at using our reporting tools and building custom, doing data science and building out those custom views for people. I don't need every CSM to be great at that. I need like one person to be amazing at that. And so we're going to continue to specialize in that way because it gets us that efficiency, it gets us that scale factor, and I think it gets us better quality of deliverables at the end of the day as well.
I love that. And I completely agree. You can, in smaller organizations, be everything to everyone. It's pretty normal. I'd say that's probably the biggest constraint organizations have is like, we don't have the budget to give you 4 different specialized roles. So one person, like Mary or Jack or whoever it is, has to do it all. But I think
Figure
as
it
you
out. Yeah.
grow, it's not fair to either of those people to put them in so much pressure for so many different parts of a customer journey. It's so large. And if you even think of like from marketing and sales, there's so many touch points that happen with a prospect before it even converts to a customer. And there's many, many people in many different teams that help enable a prospect to convert and become a customer. Why shouldn't that still be true as you grow and mature on the other side of the spectrum, which is, hey, we've now converted this customer. Now we've got to get them to a renewal and then some. And it should be multiple different teams, people, skill sets, you name it. And I love that you've kind of broken that all out, because I don't think it's fair to put all of that on one person or one skill set for
And
that matter.
that leaves the CSM at the center of the circle to be
Yep.
the quarterback, right? To call specific, to have the relationship, to understand where the challenges are, and then escalate or delegate to the right set of resources in order to get a specific problem solved. It makes you more agile and less likely to get bogged down, so that people can
Yeah,
focus
and more
on
strategic probably. And also the time, hopefully the time to be that guide that you spoke about earlier. But I'm curious, now that you've done this reorg, now that you've kind of taken some things off their plate and shuffled things around, what do you now expect your CSMs to spend most of their time on today versus maybe what they were doing a few years ago, now that you have this new org, this new setup of value delivery?
I want them developing relationships with their customers that are deeper and more resilient and more multi-threaded than they were able to before. That's, if I could pick one thing, it would probably be that. I want people. COVID's over. Uh, let's get back on site. Let's get out there and meet with our customers and engage with them directly. It's a much higher bandwidth interaction that's tremendously valuable. I was in London, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, visiting one of our like a luxury retailer, and we were there having exactly that conversation. We were doing the new business review with the goal setting conversation and solving some technical challenges for them, which went great. And then after lunch, we had a nice lunch, and they said, before you go, there are some folks from human resources that would love to sit down and talk about blah. And it turned into an entire new use case and a whole other direction for us to go in, just as a virtue of having been there on site and bumping into people in the hallway. It was terribly fantastic. So that's what I wanted to do, is to focus on relationships and on the business metrics that are specific to each customer and that set of value outcomes. Like, that's what I want, more than technical platform expertise, more than being able to troubleshoot this, that, or the other. It is. I want them out there, engaged with our customers on the topics that are important to them.
I love that. Multi-threading value delivery.
Yeah.
That's so powerful. And I think that we underestimate that because we're constantly, again, firefighting, spinning a million plates, because that's just the nature of what CSMs have had to do, the everything department, as it's been called. But I do love that you mentioned multi-threading, because I think it's underdone. I truly think that we forget the power of, like you just said, you were at a meeting. You were not expecting to be introduced to a whole other different department, but the power of building that relationship, the power of really understanding what matters within that business made them open up and trust you, be like, actually, this is what matters. Here's a whole different department that needs to speak to you today about how else we're going to be using your tool in the future. But that only comes from, like you said, radical curiosity, the ability to make sure you have that relationship, and then building on it, asking for the right introductions at the right time. And I know that you guys place yourselves as a guide, which I love. I love that analogy. It's such a great analogy. And I'm so curious, how does that change the way that customer success frames conversation with customers? Because you're now a guide, right? You're sherpering them. You're being, rather than you being the hero, they are the hero, and you're guiding. Exactly what you said earlier. How do you make sure that now frames a conversation, or how does that change things with your customers?
I think it starts with that natural inbuilt empathy that we frankly select and hire for. I think that's something that's very difficult to coach. You have to have people who have the right ethos and really are able to care about other people and put themselves in their shoes and fret about them. The ultimate goal, right, is because we're all so like naturally hardwired, just based on the fact that like you're inside your own sensorium, right? Like you are the main character in
Yeah,
the
it's
universe
normal. We
around
all
you.
have main
That
character
that
energy.
is
It's
your
part of
natural.
how we're built.
Yeah, that's your natural day-to-day experiences that we're all walking around thinking that we're Luke Skywalker. And you are, don't get me wrong, like I am too. But at work, like what I want to do is to be Obi-Wan Kenobi or to be Yoda and to say, okay, I understand you're in this situation. It is not my job to just do whatever you tell me to do. It is my job to challenge you, to bring you fresh ideas, to deeply care, and to take as much of the grunt work off your plate as I can. So how do I go about doing that and getting that done by the person that's just right? And so, like I said, it's a tough enablement kind of challenge there. I think you have to select for people that are kind of wired up that way. The other thing that I'll say is that we've invested a lot over the last couple of quarters in Eisenhower matrix training. I don't know if you're familiar with the Eisenhower matrix, but it's a
Yeah.
2x2 grid of urgent
Yes.
versus important. And I think
Yes.
that's something that that we struggle with, but I've never worked someplace that didn't struggle with it, is choosing to start your day with the specific outcomes that you want done rather than what's in your inbox and what's in Slack, and choosing, being deliberate about what you're going to work on, and measuring what's actually important, and going after that. It's a totally underrated skill. It's very difficult to master. I've been working on it for a couple of decades, but it all ties in together. This idea of serving my customers by doing the right thing, which is frequently ignoring an issue or delegating it to someone else, so that you can focus on the things that actually are going to retain that customer or are going to drive value for them, which may be less glamorous, like like challenging them to think about a different approach to something, or doing that QBR.
Exactly what you just said. It might be less glamorous, but it's actually what's going to move the needle forward with the customer. I mean, it's funny that you mentioned that we're all like we're our own little characters in our own story as well. But I think that we also love the dopamine hit of the easy, like, yes, I did that for my customer, or yes, I did this and now I'm great, right? And then the dopamine hit ends up fueling more activity-based work rather than outcome-based work, which is, again, natural. It's this little story that we tell ourselves in our brain, which is totally normal for everyone listening, but it's almost like retraining yourself on how to put customer outcomes first. And that might be the unsexy work. That might be really diving into their benchmarks and their reporting and what they're actually achieving this year versus what they said they were going to do. Or again, going into what their business like KPIs are and how that relates back to your product and how you can help them enter new markets or something along those lines, right? And so I think a lot of that comes from storytelling, if I'm honest. And I think that the ability to take metrics, outcomes, what your customers focus on, and then storytelling it into your product is a very important skill. And like you said, there's a lot of skills that aren't taught. There's certain ethos that just you're born with, or you're natural to you. But I do think storytelling can be trained. And I'm curious how you're like helping either your team, or what's the shift you've seen happen in focusing on customer outcomes. Has there been a shift in how you guys storytell? Has there been a shift in how you deliver value? How has that changed within your organization, if at all?
It's a great question. The shift that we're seeing is from specific and granular to broader and trend-based, right? So we're trying to get away from, you're using this feature and not that feature, and why not, and how can I help you, and what do you want on the roadmap, to much more broadly, your market penetration in Latin America is going up.
Mm,
How do we make it go up faster?
yeah.
Or how do we maintain that trend while removing costs, for example? And so that's where I'm trying to go, is to get it away from the nitty gritty of what do we. Don't get me wrong; those things matter a great deal, and we have to be detail oriented in our work and make sure that everything is running properly. But from a success standpoint, when we create a perception of value in our customers' minds, that you're absolutely right. That comes from a narrative of,
Yep.
we had a problem, we did a thing, it got better or it got worse, and based on that, we're going to do the next thing. And having that story build is ultimately, I think, what keeps people around. Like it or not, like, people make decisions with some amount of emotional basis to it, and then find data that sort of supports their worldview. And so I really like the importance of telling a good story is that those are resilient, right? They stick inside people's heads and they stay with them. And so that's what we're after. It's important, and it's something that I don't think can be done in like a 5-minute snippet in between slacks. You need time to focus and do deep work to sort of rationalize and discover those narratives that exist in each one of your customers.
I agree. I agree. And I think that having either the structure or the playbooks or even AI to help you get away from the day-to-day of the task doing and moving more into the strategic work, hopefully it gives everyone more time to also drive that narrative that makes sense for them. Because as you said, you're spending so much time getting to know your customers so deeply that it's like, okay, now that I know what you really care about, how do I then translate this into the right story that
Yeah,
at the end of the day, we were talking about all these characters, and I love that we're pulling into all these Star Wars references as well. But I think that there is a story, and your customer is the hero of that story. And how do you tell it to them? How do you tell it back to them
yeah,
so that your product is also a part of that story, but they're still the hero at
that's
the
right.
end of the day. So I think that that's super powerful. It's not something learned, like you said, 5 minutes between each meeting. It's something that's very intentional. I think anyone listening to this episode, if you have teams that are like looking for that as well, like you do need to be intentional with how you tell a value story. It's not something that's going to naturally happen. Yes, maybe over years. Like Jim has decades of experience. I'm sure he's going to tell a great value story, but it still takes time to develop that as well. So I think that that's just a great piece of advice. And I think I can't leave us without talking about renewals and expansion, because I think that's also another very, very hot topic. I know you separated out your team. You said your CSMs are very focused on delivering value. But what about when you were building out your customer org? Did you feel the pressure to drive renewals, expansion, but your team maybe isn't where they need to be? How did you get them there? What's kind of your thinking around expansion and renewals? Because I think a lot of CS leaders listening probably feel the same pressure point when they're designing their organizations.
I it's a challenge because you select for people that are people pleasers, that are nice, that want to be helpful, that are empathetic and really dig in, and then you put them in a negotiation situation which is inherently confrontational, and it's not always a natural motion. And so one of the things that we're really focused on are guidelines and benchmarks that exist in the marketplace at large, right?
Mm-hmm.
And being able to say to the CSM organization, this has been a customer since 2017. Do you think they want to do their 9th renewal with us? Like, come on, guys, we've been together forever. Like, let's commit to each other a little bit more seriously after a decade in business together. We'll do the 9th renewal, but let's skip the 10th and 11th, and we'll see you again at number 12, for example. So, sort of presenting these things in a light that makes it okay to make the ask for what would otherwise not be a commercial shark of a person, I think helps a lot. Also, benchmarks around what a good annual increase looks like. Some people are like, well, I got negative feedback on asking for a 3% increase. And I'm like, well, of course you did. Nobody likes to pay more for something, but
Nobody.
ask them what Amazon's uplift was, like what their AWS uplift was for the year. No shade to Amazon. They deliver great service, but I guarantee you that like that they asked for more than 3%. So
Yeah.
listen, inflation's like 3.5, 4. We're actually giving them a discount if we don't ask for the uplift. Go for it. Go get it. And that
Yeah.
makes it okay for someone who is a kind person or a people pleaser to actually be like, wait a minute, I do have a right to go and pursue these kinds of commercial terms that we have earned over years of service.
I love that. I also love that you give them guidelines. Like, I think what you said is so important. I think we're expecting our teams to become commercially minded, revenue focused, you name it, right? It's just the name of the game as we move into this new era of SaaS, right? But a lot of people just are intimidated. They're like, I don't know what to say. I'm a people pleaser. Like you just said, I want to make my customer happy. And then they're like, I don't want to go ask for a 3% increase. But if you give them the tools that say, listen, other tools increase by X, go ask them, go do this, go play this card, right? All of that plays into them getting the right assurances that they feel comfortable and confident to go have those conversations. But it does start with leadership or someone within the wider organization giving them the guardrails of what's allowable and what's normalized. And I think that that's a really, really helpful start and tip for most people out there, because I think a lot of people want people to be commercial, and they say go out and have those commercial conversations, which are confrontational or tougher. And then suddenly they're like, well, I don't know why my team isn't getting this. And I'm like, well, what did you give them? What did you tell them to go do? And then now they're all nervous about doing it. So I love the guardrails. And I'm curious as well, if you want to stay like relevant as you build out a customer success organization and be, again, revenue first, revenue minded, commercial, all the things that we've talked about so far in this podcast, like over the next few years, what's like the mindset or the type of customer success that you think will matter the most? Like the capabilities, the skills, what do you think will really matter to make sure customer success stays relevant and stays impactful over the next few years?
I want to come back to that intellectual curiosity piece. I think that's something that can't be faked and isn't easily automated away today, and probably won't be for a while. I think that's like I'll anchor on that as being something that I think is terribly important, because there is no one size fits all approach to success in this marketplace. And so I expect to see that continue. Now, I will say this concept of operational leverage, of getting more out of the assets that you already have, is absolutely going to continue, and probably at an increasing pace. And it's a conversation I have with my boss and my board pretty frequently, is about how do we use the tooling and all the LLM stuff that's emerging to make the existing set of folks not 20% more effective, but 10 times more effective ultimately. And so we're spending a lot of time and effort investing in systems and tools that are going to help those folks scale. So one of the ones that we recently built that I'm proud of is a pocket story bot. So basically you can be in a meeting and come over here onto the side and type in, I need a story about how we reduced cost at a telecommunications provider. And it'll crank out 3 different customer use cases that are tailored toward cost reduction, that are 3 sentences or less, that have a nice beginning, middle, and end to them. And that's been terribly valuable. We have one for competitive intelligence as well, that is sort of a real-time coach for our CSMs that when they find themselves in conversations like that. But we also have, I talked about before, we have an Eisenhower matrix bot as well that looks
I love that. That tells you where to spend your time. That's cool.
It gives you a weekly summary of what's going on this week that's both urgent and important. You have this renewal, this customer reached this particular threshold, and you need to perform this action, and so on. And so it's a job aid that helps each individual person, based on their book and where they are in their renewal cycle, prioritize that top right quadrant work for them. So there's a lot more to come in terms of those kinds of activities that don't replace people. They just make them a whole heck of a lot more effective. And I think also brings a little bit of joy back to the job, right?
Yeah, I think you're not fighting anymore. You're actually doing things that you were hired for, which is critical thinking and
right?
and strategic conversations and be able to deliver on outcomes. So yeah, I love that. I love that. Jim, we could keep talking all day, but I would love to ask you one more question before we go into our quick fire round. So you've built out this wonderful org. I know you're still in the process of building. There's probably people listening who are thinking about designing a value-led customer organization and where to start, what to do first. Is there any tips or overall like lessons learned that you have to share with my listeners about designing a value-led customer organization?
I think the first place I would go is to strike the right balance between being in the weeds and being strategically obsessed. And so I chose I continue to be a CSM. I have a couple of accounts and I'm the CSM. I feel bad for those accounts because I'm not great at some of the down and dirty nitty gritty details, and I apologize for that up front. But I'm great at a lot of other things. But it's important to me to be in there using the systems and going through the processes that I'm asking everybody else to go through. I think as a leader, I cannot authentically ask someone to do something that I couldn't or wouldn't do myself. And so it's important to me that everybody else in the organization sees me out there struggling, doing the same things, trying to keep my cadence, update my notes, all that stuff as well. I also ask all of my leaders to make sure that they have not a big book, but everybody needs to be kind of in it.
You got to be in it. You got to really know it. Yeah. And I love that you do that.
So you have to strike a balance between that, where you learn an awful lot about where the friction and the obstacles are in the processes that we're building, and getting a feeling for what's going to scale versus where do I need to invest effort. And then that informs your strategy of ultimately, where are our churn and downsell sources? Like what are those things, and how are we going to go about addressing them? How are we going to build a playbook that's actually consumable for those people? And so and that the strategy setting thing is a completely different exercise, right? That is much more about getting the right data sets, getting them into into your LLM of choice, and then asking the right prompts, asking the right questions, getting the data analysis done, and then translating that into a set of playbooks that are executable by your CSMs.
Love it. I love it. Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I could keep going, Jim. We could literally keep talking about this forever, but I always like challenging my guest with what I call the quick fire questions, where I ask you the next set of questions and you have to answer in a sentence or less. Are you ready for the challenge?
Here we go.
Okay. First question is, if you could predict the future, what do you think customer success will focus on next year?
Articulating value in a way that is meaningful to customers to drive retention.
Love it. Great. One sentence. You're already on the great start. Next question is, which app or software do you use every day or every week? Phone, laptop, can be CS, can be not, and why?
It's going to be a list that includes Claude, Slack, Salesforce, and good old Google Calendar.
Love it.
That's where I'm in. That's what I'm up to every day.
I love that everyone's adding an AI this year. I feel like in previous years, it was always like Slack, CRM, like Teams, something else like that, right? But now I love that there's Claude in there.
Claude's my buddy. I talk to him a lot.
Yeah, amazing. Next question is, if you could change one thing about customer success, what would it be?
If I could change one thing, I would change the pace a little bit. I think that this is a frenetic occupation with a lot of interrupts and a lot of drive. This is longer than a sentence, darn it.
It's okay. You can keep going. It's okay.
You're slower pace would allow for more deliberate and thoughtful creation of long-term processes and deliverables.
I love how you're still sticking to the sentence. I have so many guests that get way off of it and give me a whole answer, but that's a great answer.
I'm here for you.
Amazing. Okay. Next question is, what is one cool new way that you're currently using AI?
We talked about the Eisenhower bot. We talked about the customer story bot. We also just built a renewal calculator. So you tell it, hey, build me a set of bids, a 1 year, a 2 year, and a 3 year option for this customer's renewal that has the pricing thresholds built in according to the specification of the benchmarks that we've already built. That then allows the CSM, and it cranks out a spreadsheet and a proposal document and all that stuff for the CSM. So it knocks a couple hours off of.
I love that ROI bot. That has to be the best. I love it. Oh my gosh, every company should build one.
Right?
Awesome. Cool. Last question. Who should be my next podcast guest?
If you haven't talked to her already, you should talk to my friend Alexandra Gibson. She is a peer of mine at a company called ChargeV that does subscription management software. And she is one of the smartest people I know in the success ecosystem.
Amazing. Right. Alexandra, if you're listening, off chance, I'd love to have you on the show. Jim would love to invite you. Let her know. I'd love to have you on the show. Amazing. Thank you so much, Jim, for your time, your energy, all your wisdom that you've shared with my listeners. If they do have any other questions or follow-up conversation, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Hit me on LinkedIn. I'm out there at Jim Richmond ATL, and I'd love to engage with the ecosystem. Whatever you want to know, I'm here to help.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jim. This was so fun.
Thank you, Anika. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to the Customer Success Pro podcast. I hope you picked up something valuable to take back to your team. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to me if you took just 10 seconds to leave a review on Apple or Spotify. It helps more CS pros like yourself discover the show. And creating new episodes takes a lot of work, so leaving a nice review keeps me motivated to keep creating. And don't forget to hit subscribe on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcast episodes. I drop a new episode every Wednesday packed with practical tips. And if you've got a topic you'd love for me to cover or want to be a guest on my show, send me a message. All the details are in the show notes. I'd love to hear from you. And hey, if this episode helped you, share it with a fellow CSM or CS leader. Remember, sharing is caring. Cheers to your CS journey, and I'll catch you next week for our next episode.